Hello arty peoples and welcome to another episode of Jerry's Live. My name is Emmy Klein and I am your host this evening. And today I have a very fun class kind of going back to the basics of drawing planned out. We are going to be drawing your lips, or anybody's lips really for that matter. So we're going to be using charcoal today, but before I jump straight into the lesson, I want to remind you guys, if you are interested in anything that I'm going to be using throughout the show today, make sure to go to the website, JerrysArtarama.com, and type in today's class code, which is JL350. So if you go to the search bar, type in JL350, the teacher's card should be able for you to check out right over there. So in the masterpiece, this is just practice. So if you guys out there about how we're feeling and how what emotions are going through us right now. So, but if you are also an artist that has been doing this for a very long time, this is a really great practice. But grab whatever art supplies you have lying around, your sketchbook and some charcoal. And I have the SoHo Artist sketch. This is a 9x12. I like this. A lot of space to have a lot of sketches and scribbles and stuff. So, and ring binding. So, I told you I guess I'm going to be using charcoal. So, charcoal, because depending on whether or not you're familiar, it can be a little confusing, and I just fast. So, I have a couple different types here on my table. I'm going to start with vine charcoal. I love these little tins, not gonna lie. And not only do the SoHo, they also come half wrapped with some foil so that you don't get your, but I absolutely love these. Now, vine charcoal does come in I'll be able to show you guys the differences between them, right? So this one, mediums that your hands are just gonna get dirty. If you don't like that, wear gloves. It's very easy, a lot of like dust and fallout and things like that. But it's very easily in the medium vine charcoal, and it comes the exact same way. Still is very easily manipulated. And you also have willow charcoal. And actually willow charcoal, I have a medium sized one, and then a bit of a thicker one, and then the one that are toning my whole sheet of paper. I actually, most of the time, will break it in half. Feel about the same as far as the hardness is concerned, but it's very simple. So when it comes to sketching and drawing and darken those values, and then if I still find that I'm still not getting those, and drop it real quick. All right, so let's start with the soft. As you can see, it is so much darker than all the other ones. Again, your hands are gonna get dirty, it's fine. This is also how I end up with, but the compressed charcoal, while you can smudge it and smear it, most of that charcoal, this is not gonna come up very easily. Even if I were to take an eraser like the Vanish eraser, which essentially erases out everything so well, I'm still not gonna get all of it out. It's still gonna have a little bit of like a haze of where I had laid that compressed charcoal down. But a kneaded eraser is a little bit of a softer kind of an eraser, and while it can move the willow and the vine charcoal really easily, the compressed charcoal, it more smudges it, is essentially kind of what the kneaded eraser is going to do, which can work in your favor if you don't want to smudge with your finger or with a blending stump. Like if you don't happen to have one, you could just use a kneaded eraser. That would be fine too. So I also have the medium compressed charcoal here, and just like the soft, it gives you a really dark value. It's just a little bit harder as far as the feel of it. And then of course we also have the hard compressed charcoal. Same exact thing. I honestly think the darkness of each of these is about the same as far as that really deep tone is concerned, but the difference really comes in how you blend it out and how it works for you. If you happen to like the hard more than like a soft compressed charcoal, it's all personal preference at this point. Not one is not better than the other. It's just how you work as a person and as an artist. So that's why I do love that this comes in a 3-pack, and you get one of each, and you can give it a test and figure out which one works best for you. But the compressed charcoal is really what I use if I just really, really need a really dark value, and I cannot get that with the willow or the vine charcoal. That is exactly what I do. Then I have another one that is a little bit messier, if you can imagine that, and fun.
Before we get to that,
yes.
No, sorry to interrupt you. We've had some stream issues.
Uh-oh.
We're
having some stream
all
issues.
over. I don't even know how to fix it. So,
okay.
Can you go over a brief, just of those top ones, because it was cutting it out for
Oh
everybody.
no. Okay. So in case you guys can't hear Katie, I'm going to repeat that real quick. I apologize. It seems like we were having some stream issues. But I'm going to quickly go back over top of these because we were glitching in and out. I apologize for that, but this is live. It happens, but we're here to fix that. So I started with a soft vine charcoal. It comes in this really cute little closable tin, which is very convenient for anybody who's a student out there. And they actually are half wrapped in case you don't want to get your fingers completely dirty. It has a dark mass tone, and it's really soft and easily manipulated on the paper. You could very easily just take your finger and smudge it. It's so easily erased out. It's a very forgiving medium. And then, of course, the medium vine charcoal is essentially in the exact same tin with the same wrapping. They look very similar. That's soft. And then it actually has a slightly darker mass tone here. And then it's also still very easily manipulated. Then I have the willow charcoal, which right here. Couldn't remember where I put that. This comes in, while the SoHo vine charcoal comes in different hardnesses, like soft, medium, and hard. The willow charcoal doesn't come like that. It only comes in different diameters. So this has 3 different sizes, and I think that the millimeters are actually written on there. It's essentially we got a thin, a medium, a thicker willow charcoal stick. And actually that's what, in case I didn't actually mention this before, all of these charcoals, there's no toxic issues with them because it's essentially burnt sticks. Willow charcoals, it's willow branches that are burnt. Vine charcoal is actually vines from, I believe, grapevines that are burnt and turned into these sticks that we get to draw with, which is pretty cool. So the willow comes in the different diameters. I also have a jumbo one that you can use, and it's about the size of my thumb. And I use that one to tone my whole paper, while these I usually use to just draw with, and it gives you a little bit darker of a mass tone, but it's also still very easily manipulated, just like the other vine charcoals. And then I moved into the compressed. So that is, in case you guys missed it, I appreciate you guys bearing with us when we have some technical difficulties. And like I said before, in case you guys did miss it also, vine charcoal, willow charcoal, compressed charcoal, none is better than the other. It's all personal preference of whether or not it works for you as an artist. I personally like to start my sketches off with the vine charcoal because it's on the lighter side. I move into the willow charcoal if I want to get darker values, and if I still didn't get dark enough, I go to compressed to get those really, really dark values. And then, of course, I also have the thing that I have not quite gone over yet, which makes me a little nervous opening up this little jar here, because I'm a mess sometimes. And this is a jar of pure powdered charcoal, which is actually kind of fun because they come in these little granules. Now, I personally would put them into like a little ceramic dish or porcelain dish, like the ones we use for watercolors, and then grab it from there and then go onto my paper, because as I'm going to show you, when you start rubbing it around, you can very quickly make some really dark areas. As dark as you want. It's like a black hole on the screen now. And I usually move them around with a chamois cloth, which is actually part of our blending stump. Take everything out to grab that chamois, but this is essentially what it looks like. It's just a little chamois. You can also wash these. Is a very easy way to tone your paper really fast, but some of the way, this is a really wonderful way to just get dark areas dark really fast. Charcoal to me, because when I go to erase it, to erasing it out fully, like that's the Vanish Eraser, which really is a great way the willow charcoal rather than the compressed charcoal powder. But it's a lot of different things in it too. It has your blending stumps. It has a willow charcoal stick for you guys to tone with. Then it has 3 of the woodless. If you guys are interested in talking about sanguine and Conte sticks in general, let me know. To officially drawing some lips. You probably saw through the paper a mouth. Now I just focused on just the mouth for a couple reasons. While I'm doing that, I'm actually going to grab willow charcoal and jump straight into that. It's charcoal, it's okay. So when I start drawing a mouth, the center of it is, now this is just to place it wherever it lands else besides that.
Emmy, hang on 1 second.
We still have streaming issues?
Yeah, we're still having it's driven and we're, I don't know.
Okay.
I've never done this in the whole
No, I know.
I am so sorry, guys, but we... I do love having a knead eraser, though, by the way, because this is like a built-in fidget spinner for art.
Right, I use it all the time.
Ooh, that was my hip popping. Am I still live on anything? Just out of
You're
curiosity.
live on YouTube at the moment.
Oh,
but
cool. Okay. Hi.
give me a second. Try to get it back on Facebook. Oh, what did we say?
Sorry, guys. I appreciate you guys holding with us, you know. Technical difficulties. While I just sit here and knead eraser.
Don't show it up on Facebook. There it is. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely got
Someone
charcoal.
wants to know if that's how you're cleaning your hands.
Technically, yeah. This is how. Like,
Alright,
are we back?
Yep.
I think, yep.
Yeah, on all platforms.
Just Facebook and YouTube right now.
Okay. Well, I am so sorry, you guys, if you guys missed part of the beginning or all of it or any of it. I'm going to try and explain all of the different types of charcoal as I go because I just want to jump in and start drawing. Excuse me. So, yes, for anybody who was asking about how I'm cleaning my hands, this is also how you clean a kneaded eraser, is you literally just pull it apart and it kind of cleans itself, which is pretty cool. Talking about drawing the mouth, the first thing that I start with is always the red lines that I'm showing here on the facet kind of diagram that I drew. So I will always just kind of start with the width, which is that sideways line, and the center. Now, it's not always perfectly center. I'm not trying to make it perfect. It's usually, this is just a quick study and kind of where I jump straight in when I'm quickly sketching from life, especially. Now, as you can see in the corners, I usually do a little bit of a circle. And that's because in the corners of your mouth, we actually do have where all of the different folds of our lips and the cheeks kind of fold into our mouth, where the mouth opening really starts. It gets really, really dark there. So if you actually look at your mouth right there, in the corners of your mouth, where it starts to go into your actual mouth, it's just usually darkness, unless you're very oddly lit up with light. Excuse me. The next thing I'd start with is that center line, and I actually just realized my center line is not actually center, so we're just gonna smudge. This is why I use charcoal. I'm gonna smudge it out and then draw it back in. So that's more center, and I'm eyeballing it really at this point. So when it comes to the next part of drawing the face, really when it comes to drawing from life, you really need to observe how tall the lip is in comparison to the bottom lip. People come in all different shapes and sizes, so it can vary quite a bit. So if I'm drawing something like this, you know, they're almost the same distance height-wise and for the top and bottom lip. So I will draw kind of that little V shape there that indicates the Cupid's bow. And then I'll also draw the bottom, where the bottom lip kind of lands. This is just me putting little indicators and notations in because say like if you had thinner lips, right, your Cupid's bow would be lower and the bottom of your lip would be higher, closer to that center line. Now, where I go from there is not connect that to the corners of the mouth. I actually go straight in to the top of your lip, the bottom of your top lip, sorry. Bottom of your top lip, this area right here, is not a flat line, usually. Usually it goes down quite a bit and comes up almost like a V that mimics that Cupid's bow. Again, it's not always that. Sometimes it can be a little bit flatter than your Cupid's bow, so like, I'll do that over here. But usually it goes down below that center line. And then the bottom of that top lip will also kind of go back down a little bit and then meet up in that corner of your mouth. So it almost looks like a squiggle line by the time you're done. So it goes up and down and up and down. That's because your lip is a form that is kind of, it's got like a round little ball here and here. And that's usually the bulbous area of your top lip on the outer side that kind of is what your skin is forming around. It's muscles, essentially. And I'm not going to be talking about any names of muscles because I tried looking them up and there's no way, shape, or form that I'm going to pronounce them correctly or remember the names of those muscles. So if you guys are interested in looking up muscles, please feel free. But yeah, so that is exactly what happens to that center line. It actually looks quite wavy. Now, that can vary from person to person. Sometimes it's a little less pronounced, but typically speaking, that's what happens. So I'm going to kind of have a little less pronounced one over here. So then I tend to connect that top lip to the corner. So now I have essentially my top lip is drawn. It's not perfect. Sometimes that top lip can have more of like an arch on that outer side. It depends on the person really. And then the bottom lip, also same thing, where you kind of connect them. But when it comes to, let me erase that back out. When it comes to shading, this is part of why I only gave you that, the diagram here in different colors. The green is where I tend to look for all of my different shades. That upper lip is always going to be darker than your bottom lip, and the reason why is because the light usually is coming from above and your top lip is at an angle that puts it into shadow. And this is why I also love using charcoal, because I use my finger to smudge. How are we doing on the streaming? It's still good? Thingies crossed. All right. So the top...
It might be a service thing. We're just trying to make it work, so apologies to everybody.
I appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. Hopefully, if you did miss this and you're watching this in the future, if you are having any questions while I'm going throughout this process and you're watching this later, please feel free to pop them in the chat. I will always make sure to go back and check them. Do we have a question?
Yes. Is there a name for your lip diagram?
Emmy's lip diagram. I drew it. I can, if you guys are interested, let me actually erase out the charcoal that I drew. I will absolutely scan this and the next one you're about to see, and I will pop that into our Jerry's Life Facebook page. It's a group that if you guys want to join and you're not part of, you absolutely can just, it's free to join. Just answer the one security question, otherwise you're not let in. So, excuse me, I'm also trying not to cough, and so I'm gonna have to eat another cough drop. Excuse me. So I'm gonna try and also not touch this with my charcoal hands. And of course it's stuck. We're having all of our technical difficulties today. Apologies. Also really trying not to cough. Okay, So the upper lip is always going to be darker than the bottom lip unless you're lit from the bottom. Bottom up, kind of down lighting coming up on your face, that's when it reverses. So this is just natural lighting where you have sunshine hitting your head like normal. Top lip is always going to be darker. You're always going to have those dark corners, and then your bottom of the top lip, kind of where your lips meet, is also going to be quite dark, just because it's moving inward into your mouth and it's going to just be in shadow. The other thing to note, where the green, I have these lines kind of indicating kind of almost where that the V of the middle of your top lip, that bottom line of it kind of meets where the Cupid's bow is, that right there. A shadow tends to follow that. Now again, if you're drawing from life, you should always observe and make sure that you see these things, but it does tend to follow that. So it usually is on the bottom side, because again, the top is where the light's coming from and it's turning into your face and going into shadow. Now, you can see how I have a little bit of a green line here at the very top of that lip, and that's because most of the time light hits that part of your lip. So, and it usually does not go all the way to the corners. It stops, typically speaking, right before that hits that little corner. So the light will hit it, and then from like just a little bit over from that little corner of your mouth and down is also going to be in a lot of shadow, generally speaking. Now I'm going to also grab a blending stump, if I can. I'm going to get a clean one. Excuse me. These are also really great, especially when you're trying to figure out these little like areas here, because it allows you to blend a little bit softer without picking up a lot of your charcoal. It's one of those things that like sometimes that's just a little bit softer than like your fingers. Now granted, if you're drawing with a lot of charcoal and you keep having charcoal over your hands, you're going to lose a lot of oils off of your hands. But oils on your hands is why the charcoal will pick up really fast when you're using the vine or the willow. Now, if you're using compressed charcoal, it ain't gonna move. Good luck. So, but that's why I'm gonna start using this little blending stump here. And I also really love the kneaded eraser, because if I need a little bit of like a point, I can actually pinch it into whatever shape I need and kind of drag that through the areas that I need. We have a question?
Yes. If you did your sketched lips on something and then you wanted to paint over it, is there something you would have to do, or a certain kind of paint to use?
Okay, so charcoal is notoriously bad for oil paints because it tends to rise to the surface, and it is not great to be drawing on paper and then try to put oil paint on paper too, because oil paint will destroy your paper. But in general, if you're going to do, like, let's say acrylics, I would suggest acrylics, at least to seal everything down in, and you might be able to paint oils on top of that. Anything's possible. We're artists, we break rules. But I would suggest acrylics, and I would also suggest you seal this first. So you're going to want to use some kind of a spray varnish just to make all of your charcoal really sit in to the paper and not move around while you're brushing acrylics on. That's the problem, is that every time you make a brush stroke, it's going to move your charcoal around unless you seal it. So I wouldn't use workable fixative. I would use an actual spray varnish, because workable fixative is not permanent, and every time you brush acrylic on top of that, it'll probably move. So something a little bit more permanent. Question?
I'm not sure if you said this during the whole debacle earlier.
Sorry.
But is there a reason that you picked lips to demo with this charcoal?
Honestly, it was one of the facial features that I was like, you know what, let's draw some lips. So, pucker up. Honestly, if you guys are interested in having me draw other parts of the face, like nose or your eyes, let me know. I am always happy to do other shows on how to draw those things, you know? This is just really fun. And I haven't drawn lips, I don't think, on a show here, so or specifically gone into all of that. So I figured it would be fun. But we can always do more. Now, actually, let me get this little set of lips over here caught up on the whole process. But as you can see, it is the exact same process, just in different proportions. So I'm pulling those lines up and down, and it's looking like a totally different person. Your top lip will still also be completely in shadow. I'm gonna use my finger to shade that. This is why I love charcoal. It's just so easy to manipulate around. All right, and then that little highlight that kind of hits the top of your upper lip, and then, oh yeah, the shadows still also would be from like that little V in the middle to your Cupid's bow, or where the Cupid's bow is. And your Cupid's bow usually goes from the top of these this V right here up to where like your nose would be, like the center part of your nose. And that's gonna always be, if the light is coming from this direction, this side is gonna be in shadow and this side's gonna be in light. And then it's gonna also switch over here because your Cupid's bow tends to be like a, let me do it up here. It's gonna be like a little U-shaped divot that kind of moves with your mouth. Now, how deep that is and that angle is gonna severely depend on the person. Some people it's really mild, some people it's really pronounced. So it's just one of those things that you're gonna need to look at. Let me just blend that out. Yeah. Okay, so there's your Cupid's bow on that one. Let's draw it over here. Okay. Kind of looks like I'm drawing a mustache. A little bit. That's okay. Once I blend it out, it's a little less mustachy, more person's face. Now also, when it comes to drawing the face, I tend to put everything into at least some level of shadow and shade until I start erasing out my highlights, because I don't want anything pure white until I hit those highlights. And then the highlights I can always put in with different types of erasers, like the Vanish eraser. It's like that plastic key white eraser that really picks everything up. Same thing with this Tombow is a mono 0 eraser, and like look how little that is. Wow, my hands are dirty. I got charcoal everywhere. It's fine. I'm just hoping it's not on my face, which is fine. But yeah, so this is essentially a very similar eraser where it's got that kind of really plasticky feel, and it's going to pick up a lot of charcoal. And then the same thing with your Accurate rechargeable eraser. This is just an electric razor, so if you're not wanting to scrub with a handheld one, you can actually just go meet, and we might do that a little later on. Okay, so there's your upper lip, and now we're gonna move to the lower lip. I heard that, Katie. The lower lip. So same thing, we have our green lines kind of indicating the form of your lips. And then you can see I have, similar to the top where I have a little bit of like a section where the light's gonna hit it, down here is kind of the inverse, because the light's hitting the top of that bottom lip, kind of right here. I'm gonna erase out that center line here. Light's gonna hit that because your bottom lip sticks out, and usually that's where the light's gonna fall. But it has a little bit of a shelf where it starts to turn into just underneath your lip, and that tends to be in shadow. Now it's not always going to be as dark as your upper lip, but right here tends to be probably the darkest area, other than that little center area where your mouth is actually open. So then when it comes to the chin, because your bottom lip, I have it at the bottom of the lip is the blue line, and then I have down here is another line, because that's really where there's a muscle here that kind of gives you like a little bit of a divot. So this usually has like a, it goes in and back out to meet the bottom of your lip. And then it starts to go out and around. to kind of go wrap around the muscles that are right here on your face. So when it comes to this area, because a lot of times when people are drawing lips, eyes, nose, mouth, whatever facial features you're drawing, people tend to forget all the stuff in between. And that's really what the information is on your face that's going to make your face look really like your face. So when it comes to that, you can start with kind of a basic shade, blend it all out, right? And right here where that little divot is, I make it darker. But right here where your bottom lip meets that outside of your, like the skin on your face. Again, I'm not going to use the technical terms because there's a word for that and I cannot pronounce it. You guys know I struggle with words, it's fine. But right here, it actually tends to be lighter. Bless you, Ming. I don't know if you guys heard that. Because this part is actually coming. You heard it? Yep. I hope you heard that. All right. So this part is actually turning kind of out and kind of following the contours of your face. And when it comes to that, it tends to hit light right here and right here. Now, again, if your light source is coming from this direction, it might be a little darker over here, but it is not going to be anywhere near as dark as right here. So, because if I were to throw this all in shadow, it would be really bizarre. That's just, the bottom lip is just sticking straight out of your face. It's too much.
Too much color.
Yeah. So, unless somebody had filler, that, again, people are all different shapes and sizes. There's a possibility that that is real. But naturalistic, not Botoxed kind of faces tend to follow the other rules, where it is a little bit softer and lighter right here. So when it comes to the bottom lip though, a lot of it can be in light, but again, not everything is pure white. So I'm going to put in these little lines that follow the contour of your lip. Now the reason why I like to draw it in lines is because you actually do have a lot of creases in your lips. That is what allows us to move our lips around. It's honestly a lot of skin. I'm sorry, Amanda. We were discussing this earlier and she got cringed out. It's hard to explain without saying that. But there's a lot of like little different like wrinkles and stuff that are in your lips. That's why our mouths can move and contort as much as they can, because there's a lot of stretch there. But when it comes to that, I like to do that and then use my finger to kind of soften those lines. That way those lines are indicated. Hopefully you guys can see that. The lines are indicated there, but they're not super pronounced. Now, depending on whether or not somebody is dehydrated, sometimes they can be more pronounced, but you know, it depends on the person. So let me I like to use the corner of my vanish eraser, especially when it comes to like a fresh one. Honestly, sometimes I will actually break them in half and make more corners, because I like to use the corner of that to continue that kind of concept of like the lines that are found within the lips. And none of that is going to be really, really, really bright highlights. Now, if you find that you are actually erasing too much, you can always draw it back in. It's the beauty of charcoal. Now, the one thing I didn't actually draw here with my line contour, and maybe I'll add it back in, is that when your bottom lip starts turning into that mouth, there is technically, I could have broken this down to like a million different facets, let's be honest. But where that lip starts turning into your mouth, there is another kind of shady area because it's just receding back into space. But that shadow doesn't really extend too far outward on the bottom lip. And there's some lips. Now, if I do it down here, maybe they have a different type of chin. Do we have a question?
Yes. What is the main difference between a man's lips and a woman's lips?
I'm glad you asked. It's valid. So, technically speaking, shape-wise, they don't have much of a difference as well. It's just, it can come in all different shapes and sizes as far as like man's lips versus women's lips. This could be a man or a woman. That's the thing, is that you never know. Typically speaking, the indicators tend to be the stubble around it that can happen. So whether or not you have like little stubbly or like a mustache, which honestly I can draw a mustache over here. It tends to, like, if this is where the bottom of your nose is, your mustache does not go all the way to the bottom of your nose. In case you guys are wondering, it tends to follow just underneath. But like now this is a man's lip because it has a mustache. And also sometimes the mustache doesn't fill in the center. But that's the thing, is that like we come in all different shapes and sizes, so you never know. And then this is why I do love this for like hair. So when it comes to mustache hairs, you can actually use that quite a lot. Now it's a man's face. So when it comes to that though, I also do have some examples here of actual people. So it really depends on what you're looking for in the live model, or if you're looking at your own lips, or even photos like this. Sometimes that Cupid's bow is going to be more pronounced, like I drew here. Sometimes it's a little bit softer. And then of course, actually, guy's lips. There's your mustache. But take all the facial hair away, and it could be a woman's lips too. That's the thing, is that it honestly, lips are lips. It's until you start indicating those gender kind of features, you're really not going to be able to tell. Actually, if you had something that had no indication, you could actually make it very androgynous, which is kind of cool. So that is where it comes to drawing lips straight on. And we're at 6:15. How long did we go? Because I know we had some technical difficulties and got a little bit of like a hiccup. So how long are we going until?
We've been going about 30 minutes.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So I was like, I feel like I have another half of the show, and it's...
You're about half the show, yeah.
Okay. Now, one thing I did want to note is that that center line that I started off with is one of those things where if you start tweaking that line, you can start changing your facial features, right? So just by changing that, let me quickly draw this in here. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but yeah. I made it smile. The same thing is if you go the other direction. Like, let's actually make it real pronounced here. Sad face. So it's one of those things where when you start moving those features and pulling these lines around, that's where you can actually really change those facial features. Now, to really quickly go over this before I forget, I actually do have these like little, almost like they look like beans, honestly. They're not actually in the corner of the mouth, they're just on the outside of that. That is actually where a muscle pulls your face in when you start to smile. So usually when it comes to like a smile, you'll have like a shadow that will also go a little further out here, but it's still not as dark as the corner of your mouth. But that will pull in, like if you actually look at your own face and smile. No, actually, Michaela and I were actually talking about this. Dimples. Dimples are on the outside of those lines. So that shadow, if someone's smiling, there's going to be like another bulk of mass right here, and then your dimple is going to be right here, kind of a thing. So if you wanted to draw dimples, you have to give it a little bit of space. There we go, dimples. So cute. Now, sideways, we're going to go over the idea of lips at a side profile. Now, because you never know what you're gonna get when it comes to start turning those things into space. I have like a 3/4 view here where you start moving that center line. So let me not drop that. If I were to do that center line, right? Here's the side of that there. Instead of drawing the center line here, draw it here. It's the same exact concept. That Cupid's bow is gonna meet Cupid's bow. I struggle with words. You guys know this. Cupid's bow is gonna meet up at that center line. The bottom of your lip is gonna still be there. That's why I usually draw those first. And then you can start to draw those other features that kind of still follow the same rules, and then just connect it that way. And then it can start changing that way. So when you start turning in space, those facets of your face are gonna stay the same. It's just gonna start shifting. But when it comes to sideways, again, it all depends on what you're looking at for the person. Sometimes if you actually have it turned enough, that little Cupid's bow that's right here will be completely disappeared, and it will only look like it just goes straight down and meets up with your lip. But for this person, you can see that Cupid's bow is here. This is where the center line is, and it goes over here. Kind of like that. I hope you guys can see that, because it is me drawing with charcoal on a black and white photo. But when it comes to the sideways, when it's like a side profile, sometimes that angle of your lips can actually drastically change instead of being straight up and down. But like say we're gonna do sideways versus that straight up and down. Corner of your mouth. Let's see, the side of your lip is gonna be here. The further that line angles in, that's going to indicate either an underbite or an overbite, because if you tilt it the other way, it's going to be an overbite. That angle is going to be completely dependent on who you are looking at. So it's one of those things where it's all different. Now that Cupid's bow, well, with the flat, straightforward kind of facets of your face, is just all straight lines. This is where I can't draw straight lines just because it tends to angle and curve. That Cupid's bow, this right here, it can have a dramatic curve. Sometimes it can be a little bit more flat. Like it could honestly go straight like that. It is entirely dependent on the person you are looking at. I'm going to say that over and over again. Sorry, it's going to be like repeating over and over again. But this right here is what I'm talking about when it is sideways. This right here is going to be that area that's really in shadow, and then it starts coming out to meet that outer area of the lip. So it's still in shadow, but it's not as pronounced. And can honestly sometimes even match up with the lip, if that makes any sense. Is everybody following with me so far? Cool. Because now I was going to actually draw from one of these photos, because I also wanted to go over, I talked to you guys about facial hair, and also with, before I forget, facial hair on like the bottom lip. It actually comes up to meet the bottom lip quite a bit, but usually it's just in the center. Off to the sides, it can actually drop down quite a bit. Sometimes this area is the last to grow hair. Like with teenagers, they tend to miss this entire section of facial hair. It's just one of those things, but like it always depends on the person and their ethnic background, of course. Some people tend to have that hair immediately. Some people don't tend to grow hair right here at all throughout the rest of their life. It's just entirely dependent on the person. Then we have teeth, because I can't draw the mouth without addressing teeth. So I'm going to do the straight on view for this, just because it's easier. But when it comes to opening the mouth, instead of having, because I'm going to do the center line again, instead of having the bottom of your lip here, right where that center line, of course, it's going to be a little bit higher. and then I'm gonna have the top of the lip, and then it still meets up with that corner because it all kind of hinges from those corners, right? Now, the bottom lip can also stay right here, but if I wanted to lower it a little bit more, I could too. That way, the center of your mouth kind of tends to stay right there. Now, if I erase that center line out so you guys can really see what I'm talking about, because that would be, I'm drawing this pretty quickly, so be kind. There's the bottom of your lip, and there's the bottom of your chin, or the crease where your chin is. So when it comes to teeth, something I've always felt very strongly about when it comes to drawing teeth, you do not have to draw every nook and cranny on every outer edge of every tooth. It actually tends to look real weird when you do that. So let's say that their teeth, it's a androgynous form at this point, land right there. And let's say the rest of this is thrown into shadow. Okay, so this actually, when it comes to cartoon kind of style, totally acceptable. You don't have to do anything else beyond this. Now, if you're trying to get more realistic, where you're drawing the teeth, like in a studio format or anything like that, usually what I find is that if you draw the bottom edge and the top edge, like if your gums are actually showing, like say just a little bit right here and right here, and there's the two front teeth, tend to be bigger than the rest, and then your second tooth usually goes up a little bit on the bottom, and then your fang is next, so that is back down further. And then once it gets beyond that, sometimes you can't see any more teeth. Your teeth are starting to wrap back into your head. So it's one of those things where it's not always visible, every single tooth. But if you draw just the indication of those edges, you do not have to draw the inner portions of all of the little teeth that you can see, just to kind of indicate that there are teeth. Because if you start drawing every single line for every single tooth, it just tends to look a little juvenile. I don't know how else to say that. It's just, it goes from like teeth to like, you now have gaps in between every single tooth. Most of them touch, most of them kind of, I can see where her teeth are touching, and yes, there is an indication of a shadow there, but when it comes to that, it's really not that dark. It really is not that pronounced. So with that being said, kids' teeth, they tend to have gaps in between every tooth. It's one of those things where like their teeth, because they are so small, it's baby teeth is the one that I usually have problems with. When you draw every single line in between, it tends to look a little bit more like a child, because they tend to have their teeth, they haven't formed. They're really gets confusing when you have half baby teeth and half adult teeth. I'm sorry to say that I don't think there's any way to draw a little kid's teeth without making them look a little shark-like. It's just one of those things, and it's as long as you keep the fact that like their teeth are relatively small compared to like the size of their mouth, unless they have an adult tooth. But like the great thing is that sometimes you can also have those missing teeth, and like then you have to deal with your gums. It's the same exact concept as like, if your teeth are touching, you don't have to indicate that harsh line. You could just indicate that there's a slight shadow, which is also sometimes why I like these blender stumps, is because I can actually draw with this sometimes, like even if I get like a little bit of charcoal on there, I could actually use this as a really light drawing tool. It's really nice to be able to have that subtle tool where you're just kind of indicating a little bit of a darkness, but not a full line, because it tends to be strange. And also sometimes you have that smile line that goes up around, let me see if I can grab it real quick. This right here, this outer line here, if I can pull that on camera. Sometimes your smile line will follow that. Sometimes it's really strong, like when they're smiling, smile lines. Sometimes it's really strong when you're frowning. It depends on, I like how Katie's actually like looking at her. It's like, that's the beauty of it, that we all have mouths and you guys can practice all of this at home just with your own mouth. And it's really, really bizarre sometimes that you're just like, oh, that's actually what it's doing. Because then when you start making faces, you can really start playing with those proportions, which is really fun. So like, I'm gonna do another straightforward one, right? There's my center line. But let's say that I'm gonna have my lip only go from here to here, right? On both sides. I know that looks bizarre, right? I'm gonna actually up that. Because if you do this, right? I know it looks bizarre right now, and I'm hoping that some of you are getting what I'm gonna do. Now I made a fishy face. You can start really messing with those proportions, but it's still the exact same idea as far as like the shape and where things land. It's just moving those proportions around. You can even draw.
What about a smirk?
A smirk? What kind of
You're
smirk?
like one.
Oh, where one side goes up?
Mhm.
Okay, so you guys are gonna start really challenging me here, aren't ya? Okay, so if one side is going up, then that line, instead of being straight, is gonna go like this, right? Corner. Trying to think of like, Amanda, smirk me.
I can't do it.
Okay, there it is. Okay.
I don't know if that's a smirk. That's a.
I'm gonna do the Katie smirk. This is her eye is twitching at this point. Okay. So that one side will go up because I'm pulling that side up. The smile, the center line should still be in the middle, but because I pulled this up, everything is gonna follow that form, right? So this side wants to remain the same, but my center line is gonna start following this. Usually there'll be some creases here. Trying to remember how. Give me this one. We can't hold these faces. It's hard. I'm hard to like. It's hard to do, isn't it?
I can't.
Yeah,
do it.
'cause,
Mine's
like-
weird. They're weak.
You tend to get like the creases that happen here. But then this tends to follow that line. It's hard to people sometimes, man. This is why this is such a good practice, because it is so hard to do. And I've been drawing for how long now? Like it's difficult.
I think I don't smirk with one side of my mouth though. I feel like
Yeah, you only smirk with the one side. That's just why I did it. 'Cause like she's not holding her face long enough. What?
I think the problem is I have to do it unconsciously, and as soon as I start thinking of it, we're getting weird faces.
Yeah.
It's
Wrong side, Katie. She's not holding her face long enough.
I can't.
But
Apparently.
this is the beauty of it, is that you have a face you guys can smirk at home, but it's one of those things where like start throwing faces in the mirror, but draw from life. It's one of those things where like, yes, it is hard to kind of pull your face. But like when you start drawing from life and you seeing the way that your mouth is like pulling those muscles and the skin around, this is the show of faces. We're all gonna throw some faces. It's good. But it's one of those things where you can start tweaking those lines and those facets and having them follow. Because if I remember correctly, I need that diagram. I am definitely gonna scan this. I'm gonna probably clean it up and give you this diagram without all my scribbles all over it. Because like that is right here, This is where, like, sometimes you need to have that diagram to kind of help make sure that things are going the right way. Okay. Because this is going to be pulled up more towards this way. So everything's going to kind of start shifting down a little bit like that. Smirks are hard. All right, now, before I keep getting distracted by smirks, the other thing I want to talk about is when we start to age. I know, nobody wants it. We were talking about it earlier, telling them to enjoy their 20s. When you start aging, all of those lines that are within your mouth here, those, like the lip lines, they tend to keep continuing past where your actual mouth stops, like your lips. The other thing is that as you age, your lips tend to get smaller. I don't know why. You also lose your eyebrows. It's really bizarre. But yes, sometimes we get that thinner lips. Unless you guys are Botoxing out there, which if that's what you're doing, more power to you. Now, I feel like this is a smirk, really. It's kind of a smirk. It's a little bit of,
I don't know.
she's cheeky.
I don't want
I like it.
side smirk.
Yeah, that's why I had the
Wait.
one side going up, and then Katie would stop.
I can't help it.
I can't. Well, no, I need you to smirk longer, please.
I can't do it without my eyes, and that's weird.
That is a very bizarre thing. So
Do like fishy face or something. Kissy face.
I had that down. It's fine. Also, when you start aging, those lines tend to also extend from like the side of your mouth. Now, they are not always going to be as dark as the corners of your mouth, but it depends on your wrinkles and things like that. We're gonna wrinkle, guys. There's no way around it. I can talk and draw, I swear. It's one of those things that, like, this is why I love using charcoal, is because if I need to soften something, I can just run my finger across it. Again, though, this is what is the end result. Do I have charcoal on my face? I feel like I'm gonna. Ooh, look at me. I'm managed not to touch my face so far. But yeah, so your features as we get older tend to be less crispy because it's just with age, it comes use of our facial features, and sometimes that's just gonna take a toll. Her lips are darker here, but those wrinkles that go from here on your lip is also going to be visible. And as you can see, her Cupid's bow is not very pronounced at all. It's almost just a very soft shape. But it's one of those things where you can see the light's coming from here. So her nose is throwing the shadow over here, which is part of that that plane right here. This right here, where your mustache would sit, essentially. And I just drew on that. Whoops. The light is going to hit that, but sometimes your nose will throw a shadow over there, so like it could very easily be quite dark. Okay, and then right here where that plane would kind of meet there, this is going to be in shadow because it's turning in space. And do we have any more questions? Because I think we're getting close to the end here. All right, so shadow. So yeah, the more wrinkles and things that you indicate like that, the older your person is gonna look, which is okay. Age is beautiful. But it's one of those things where, like, it's also like crow's feet. We tend to get a lot of wrinkles around our eyes and things. But if you wanted to, you could just indicate little lines like this. Then it gets darker in the corners, where it's starting to turn into that open space of your mouth. and then it goes down. And as you can also see, that area where her lip would normally be protruding out and casting it in shadow, it's not that strong. But you can see that there is right here where the bottom of her lip does kind of terminate into the skin on her face. It does bump out, but there is like a weird shelf underneath it. Sometimes that does happen too, which is like, it's almost like the muscle of your face is not quite done, but your lips are. Why that happens, I don't know. If anybody has an answer, let me know. And then it gets a little darker in shadow. And if you have the light coming from this way, sometimes that corner of your bottom lip will also turn into shadow, just because it tends to get thrown, like your upper lip sometimes will cast a shadow over top of it, depending. Now I am going to throw this into a shade, because that way I'm going to actually take our little rechargeable eraser and pop in some highlights there. Actually throw everything kind of into some level of shadow. Because I'm going to also use some of my compressed charcoal to really darken those shadows. And this is where, if I need something that's really, really dark, that's where I'm going to reach for my compressed charcoal. And I know if I start erasing back out those highlights, like the wrinkles and things that I know need to be really pronounced, the compressed charcoal is not really going to erase out that easily. So I can just knock all that back into shadow. Her whole bottom lip right here is pretty dark. There's some wrinkles that kind of come up. Okay, and again, that shadow on the bottom lip does kind of start coming out on the top of the bottom lip, I should say. That's really hard to differentiate. Okay, she got all kinds of wrinkles over here. And if you can, sorry, if you look at that, it goes down to the bottom of her lip and then kind of pops back out. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do, in case you guys are confused as to what I am drawing. Okay. Then all of that's just in shadow. Take my finger. All right, highlights. Like I said, this is an electric eraser, so if I press the button, it will start to spin this little tiny eraser. It actually comes in 2 different sizes, which is really cool. 2 different size erasers. It comes with all these different, like, this gray attachment will be holding the little tiny ones, and then the larger ones will actually, I think, just go straight in there, which is pretty cool. So there's actually not a whole lot of light highlights. They're kind of over here. It's similar to like a mustache, honestly, because she's got a lot of like wrinkles and like little areas where it's starting to hit that lip. And even if I take a vanish eraser, I can start popping those out further. And where I find it's not dark enough, I will just darken back up. And then take my eraser, things like that. So, whoop, drop things. I'm gonna actually pop in some highlights here, just on that little sort of almost shelf area underneath her lip. Your bottom lip is going to have highlights usually kind of in the center, but that highlight will be broken up because you have the wrinkles on your lip. So pay attention to kind of where they land. Sometimes you don't have as bright of highlights across your entire lip. Sometimes they're only on the one side, depending. It's one of those things where it depends entirely on your light and kind of how it's hitting the form of the face. And then this gets pretty light over here. And then even though this area, I said with the, where that skin on your lip kind of meets or the skin on your chin starts to meet the bottom of your lip, it usually comes back out in form. Hers it's just that shadow is being cast across her face, so it's not as light as over here, but is actually getting lighter where that happens. All right, I'm gonna call that done. Ta-da! Lips. Thank you, thank you. And I believe that is bringing us full circle around to those beautiful lips right there that I actually drew for the thumbnail. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I am so sorry about the technical glitches that we had earlier. Again, if you guys are interested in any of the materials that we have and I was showing you guys throughout the show, make sure you go to the website, JerrysArtarama.com, and type in today's class code, which is JL350. You type that in the search bar and the teacher's cart is going to come up and show you everything that I've been using here. And that was drawing lips in charcoal. I hope you guys get a chance to practice this yourself, no matter what level of artist you are. And of course, if you do, I would love to see you guys post it. Please, I'd love to see your artwork. You can always post it on any social media and tag JerrysArtarama. We will find it. Amanda always keeps an eye out for those. Or you could actually join our Facebook group, which is Jerry's Live Facebook page, I believe is Jerry's Live Facebook group page. I think it's actually the name of it. Free to join. There's like 7,000 members. All of us are lovers of art and different levels of artists, and we can always pop in there and ask questions and get advice and share your work. And if you guys get to draw some lips, I would love to see what you do. So post it there if you can. And of course, always make sure you join us next week. Michaela is going to be back with a traditional Chinese ink painting, which is actually really, really, really cool. I am so excited. She's got some really great examples that I've been watching her do, so it's been fun to watch. And I believe that it's the show. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!